What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word convention? Is it something similar to what you're seeing now, a Comic-Con? That certainly was the case for me. However, everything seems to have a convention nowadays. There are expos for common things like wedding planning, and even uncommon things like vaping. But would you be surprised if I told you even hackers have conventions? That's right. Some of the world's brightest minds get together every year for an elite convention. This convention provides insight into the world of cybersecurity. What are the name of these conventions? Black Hat. Before I go any further, I figured I should probably discuss the different types of hackers because although the Black Hat conventions are called Black Hat conventions, they're not actually run by Black Hat hackers. So, Black Hats. These type of hackers are the hackers that are portrayed in the media as evil and malicious, and rightfully so, because usually the core concept of what they're trying to do, intentions, that's the word, the intentions behind Black Hat hackers are not ethical. And for example, someone like the mafia might hire a black hat hacker to steal someone's identity, and get money for their family. White hat hackers are actually ethical hackers, and it's kind of funny to me at least because when you hear the word hackers, you don't always think ethical. But white hat hackers are hired by companies like banks or hell, even doctors' offices, law firms, to test the computer systems within these companies so that black hat hackers can't get into them. So, with the company's knowledge, these white hat hackers are to go into the system and try to find loopholes and ways that or test the security of these systems of these companies. And typically, once they're done trying to hack in, if they've had success or not, either way, they're to give a report to let the other company know what they need to work on. And gray hat hackers are kind of the Robin Hoods of hacking. They are pure with their intentions, and they try to do good, but the way that they go about doing good is not always the best. And I guess for me, and I don't know how you guys think about it, but Anonymous is actually a great example of these gray hat or Robin Hood hackers. Um, they try to convey conspiracies and areas of mistrust within our government and other things around the world, but the way that they get into these systems and then carry out their activities is not always good or ethical. About Black Hat conventions. Now, this first part I took directly from the website because I was having trouble myself trying to find the exact words to describe a Black Hat convention. Black Hat is the most technical and relevant global information security event series in the world. They have conventions here in the US, but they also have them in Japan, China, and literally every other country you can think of. These conventions have been around for years, 18 years in fact, so some of you who are just out of high school might actually be as old as the convention. Who can attend these conventions? Although you might be intimidated by the fact that they are a high-profile convention, students and teachers can actually attend these conventions as long as it's for education purposes. You're not allowed to bring children. There actually is an age limit, or not an age limit, but an age restriction. You have to be at least 18 years old. But people you would typically see at these conventions would be IT specialists, security analysts, engineers, and even government officials, federal law enforcement, and local PD. Now, obviously, the IT specialist, the security analyst, and the engineers are kind of an obvious answer as to why they would be there. Um, but government officials, federal law enforcement, and even local law enforcement go to these conventions to gain insight into new technologies that might help them fight crime, but also the type of technologies that black hat hackers can get their hands on. By informing themselves about what types of technologies are out there, they're better informed of how to go about combating the crimes that are associated with these negative technologies. Now in this video here, you can see an officer is in pursuit of a suspect who is driving obviously way too fast, erratically, and God knows what they did to initiate the chase in the first place. But if you notice, and let's just sit here for like, I don't know, 30 seconds, probably less than that. Just watch. Cue the Jeopardy music. Do, 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 do. He still hasn't stopped him. Blew a red light. Still hasn't stopped him. Still hasn't stopped him. Now the road is wide open and he can just go as fast as he wants. But what if there were other people around? Thank God there's not. This pursuit is taking way longer than it needs to be. Can you think of any ways that this could be taken care of and possibly the length of the pursuit could be eliminated? And what are some ways that you could, like that, an accident, what are some ways you could eliminate causing an accident like that? Or what are some ways that you could endanger, not endanger, you don't want to endanger, what are some ways you can eliminate endangering pedestrians and passerbys? This next technology, I'm not going to expose right away. I want you to just take a brief look at it and try to guess what you think that this gentleman is doing. Do you have any ideas yet? Well, as soon as I scroll on over to this screen, how to make fingerprints. As you can see right there, actually, go ahead and pause it. This is a silicone, and if you remember seeing the sheet of black squares before, the video quality kind of sucks, but those are actually fingerprints that he's copied. He's taken one of those, and through technology, he has developed a silicone fingerprint. Now, I'm sure you guys are like, Lexi, what the hell did those two technologies have to do with anything? But just bear with me 1 second, and after the next slide, I will explain how those are incorporated. Now, what goes on at a Black Hat convention might help to answer what the last two clips had to do with anything. One of the first things and main things that happens at a Black Hat convention is when security professionals get on stage and they lecture the crowd, much like you would in a regular classroom, about trends in cybersecurity and what's being done to address these threats. And the next thing that happens at a Black Hat convention that's probably the most popular is training. The people who attend these conventions are taught by these security professionals on how to exploit web-based applications, penetrate various security systems, and how to utilize some of the newest technologies. A lot of the trainings that are introduced to the people that attend these conventions are the first time that these people are hearing or seeing of these new technologies. So, for instance, the car that was being chased by the officer was taking way longer than it should have. And there was a lot of risk factors because they were speeding and because the officer had to actually cause an accident to stop the person they were pursuing. They could have endangered passerbys, the officer could have endangered himself, and they also could have endangered pedestrians. What could have stopped that? Well, there's actually a new technology on the market that was featured at a Black Hat convention a couple years ago that allows a person, for instance, an officer at your local police department, to hack into a car's computer system and actually stop them without having to be even near them. So say you had a Ford and you were getting chased by the cops. The cops could, in conjunction with Ford and this new technology, stop the car in pursuit without you even actually having to be out on the road. Now, eventually you'd have to go out and apprehend the criminal, but you wouldn't have to participate in a chase. So, how to hack into this Ford's computer system, the application that's used to do that was actually presented at a Black Hat convention. And now the fingerprinting technology is something that is very intimidating, at least to me, and that's why I decided to present it, because that silicone mold with the appropriate amount of heat could actually be used to trick a fingerprint ID system. A lot of you know that when somebody is arrested, there is a database called APHIS to search through to get people's personal information. Now, if somebody really wanted to, they could develop an entire they could access APHIS, hack into APHIS with their computer skills. Then, with their hands-on skills, they could form that silicone mold, and together, bringing those, they could hack into other systems, pretend to be other people elsewhere. Now, this is kind of just like a silly thing, but if you've ever used a fingerprint to clock in at work, per se, somebody really wants to mess with you and clock you out early. And say your coworker is not a nice guy. He could make a fingerprint of you, go into your file at work, clock you out early, clock you in late, make you come in on days that you're not there, and cause a whole hell of a lot of trouble. But in regards to hacking into APHIS, you can get access into people's social security numbers, birthdays, addresses, and the like. So that's something that was introduced at a Black Hat convention a couple of years ago as well, that local PD and government officials really would want to know about and educate themselves about, because that's something that could cause harm. In summary, Black Hat conventions are a place where a meeting of the minds happens. Security professionals teach local PD, government officials, and students about cybersecurity threats and technologies that are being developed to combat these threats when they become active. The reason it's called a Black Hat convention is because even though white hat hackers create these technologies that come from this convention, the white hat technologies are used to combat black hat activity. Thank you guys so much for watching. For those of you who don't know or don't pay attention, my name is Lexi, and I am a second-year criminal justice student.